decarbonization. Domestic decarbonization is inevitable and ongoing. That makes American firms significantly more carbon efficient than foreign firms. For instance, 22. The U.S. is one of the most carbon efficient economies according to the OECD. U.S. companies are facing consumer decarbonization. The U.S. has abundant natural resources. U.S. gas replacing coal contributed to a 2% drop in emissions since 2005 and 2021. Purchasing a new grid capacity for renewables has continued with an influence of investments through the infrastructure, the Act, the IRA, policies that account for emissions and turbine hand producers their competitive advantage. But decarbonization is costly and collapses American economic competitiveness. A border tax on energy-intensive imports revitalizes American industry. Milko 23. The IRA worked a turning point policy to stem climate change and keep moving carbon imports while improving competitiveness of domestic cleaner goods manufacturers in the U.S. and EU are subject to more strict regulations, emissions goals, and competitizations, and manufacturers are rewarded for lower carbon import fees or rewards sustainable production and incentivizes decarbonization to stay competitive. CBAM narrow the practice of importing goods to offshore manufacturing. Declining competitiveness causes extinction through deterrence. Failure. Johnson 24. The U.S. is no longer capable of deterring Russian motivated stability. Diplomatic conditions have not less than North Korea. Rotary counter C was the Taiwan whole Russia's invasion preventing Iran sanctions against Israel. The U.S. is silent, hoping they do not escalate recent rhetoric question by building new deterrence system. Industrial technologies weaken the industrial sector. Backstop makes negotiation sanctions and military satisfied without industrial health efforts are hollow shift towards the commercial sector. Foster preference for overseas product health decline policies must encourage industry. An emissions performance-based border carbon adjustment drives both global and domestic decarbonization as firms compete for U.S. market share. Fishman et al. 24. Recent policies lower domestic emissions but little to global emissions beyond imports creates an incentive for foreign countries and manufacturers to produce emissions reductions and U.S. emissions create competitive pressures for overseas producers to keep pace. And policy gives U.S. companies an incentive to invest in decarbonization to maintain competitive advantage. Only border adjustments prevent leakage. That's key to effective climate solutions. Schroeder and Straka 24. Governments have incentive for carbon leakage. Sorry. Undermines policy doing empirical evidence such as taxes, leakage taxes, reduce total emissions, consumption emissions, fall less implications are relevant to taxes, benefits, subsidies, and other instruments. National policy impact global emissions only if it caused made by CBAMs. Climate change causes extinction through cascading complex system failure. Mitigation is key. Adaptation causes existential termination. Shock bridges. Adult 24. Emissions rise warming above 3 degrees. It's likely to be about to accelerate, exacerbate, warming at 8 degrees. Climate change plus an existential risk come out of right ag and disrupt food, which leads to economic, social, political, and civil migration. Confident global scale understanding worst case scenarios is underdevelopment, increased complexity, increased vulnerability. This interconnected landscape is synchronous. Cascading failure, creating competitive for collapse or rapidly spread across global scale. Food conflict occur. International food insecurity contributes to societal collapse due to institutional breakdown of climate change. Existential is misguided threats all by readings likelihood researchers. Conflict existential risk with advanced climate change. Like single uniform process that is diffuse impacts activating different risk cascades that interact with other threats, food security, societal collapse. Volcanic eruptions and other pathogens, disease creating reinforcing global death spirals. Authors will answer a direct impacts make Earth uninhabitable. These are entirely different questions. Culture of rings that are represented analysis or harder comics on the side of these trauma. Possible campaigns so down and create incentives for conservative science that builds consensus to reduce responses such as SA. I contribute to systemic risk. The problem is termination shock of calamity activities. This isn't the significant accelerate warming. SAI found the tail on worst case scenarios. Advantage 2 is trade. The plan catalyzes a restructuring of the international trade system away from pure liberalization toward a solution-oriented model of trade that diffuses rising backlash to hyper-globalization. Work 21 worries. BCA spark trade wars overall. BCA's improve cooperation and ensures that facilities chemicals by visiting trade rules so they better serve interests is essential to the regime. Otherwise, policy accomplish wage increases human rights and security supply chain rules of trade cannot accomplish the leaders. Governments are facing growing pressure to limit trade. These protection policies and trade through basic instruments cannot differentiate attributes without course correction. Global economic orders deterring as trade standard by domestic products that progress and reward-backed actors. EU and US make up 40% of the global economy. These are the most attractive markets in the world. BCA is a fundamental change to the trade regime to retaliatory moves are no matter of permanent shift in trade rules for benefits of traders to foreign growing economies. Likely countries look to avoid by liability by reducing emissions. Unilateral action must come first. Climate is clear. Starting point for thinking agreements. It provides a proof of concept for mission-driven trade that can survive successive administrations. Section 23. Biden seeks to reframe globalization. USTR described less efficient world organized by climate change and livelihoods of workers in Washington consensus with other challenges. This is ambitious talk about Biden's sponsorship and trade policy with little to show in concrete outcomes. Future administrations without issue to progress to old approaches to community return to Trump's skepticism and clear how urgent it is Biden seeking landing on trade soon. With Russia assuming there's still one opportunity to set progressive President by striking deals to create a market for low carbon steel between the US and Europe. This represents the opportunity for Biden to proof of concept for its vision. Otherwise, collapsing support for globalization causes extinction through rising inequality, populism, climate change, pandemics, and war. Alfonso Iwila 23. Enterprises under attack shocks first financial crisis under COVID. Now Ukraine created an alternative narrative. Globalization exposes them to risk enterprises vice new measure its independence. Supply crisis trade is necessary to be challenges such as climate change, inequality, and pandemics. Globalization needs to be reimagined in the US and China. The solid for terrorist pandemic in Ukraine exposed all the governments and natural government restrictions that said deglobalization rates at odds with data trade behavior market levels in 2022. Trade can reduce emission countries focus on whether you're relatively green. It makes sense to import energy intensive products from places that with low carbon energy. This works only when policies are in place so environmental costs are internalized. So governments compare each other's climate policy trade lift. Won't be like people out of poverty and inequality between countries and inequality within advanced economies. Increase when their financial crisis is bad. Populist extremism trade became an easy escape of political disruption. Score importance of cushioning impacts of trade buying supervised providing incentive to avoid conflict and reform. WTO for the centuries need for urgency and crisis really ahead. Without the trade of the world will be less able to weather the plan reduces supply chain vulnerabilities through and friendshoring. Fishman et al. 24. Improving critical supply chains from heavy countries to critical minerals. BCA redirects investment to US and countries with lower emissions which are used as the BCA promotes supply chain diversity. China's primary supplier 24 of 50 minerals to deem critical Chinese internal factors for emissions such as the counterparts of fees incentivize reshoring production processing assembly. BCA weaken Chinese dominance over supply chains. Supply chain disruptions cause conflict escalation. Martin 21. Supply chain disruption and impact national security, economic well-being, health and productive infrastructure toward describe aggressive behavior, international stability, even economy defense, disruption, civil situation, the sector's whole economy still impact, disruption, nations builders defend, examples are raw materials and semiconductor nations have gone to war over shortages and secret markets explicit in German and Japanese actions into World War II, even during interdependence such as Europe and prior to World War I. Plan. The United States federal government should apply an emissions performance border carbon adjustment to imported articles. Solvency. The plan solves Fishman et al. 24. The EPCBCA should apply to imports only. All domestic producers benefit proposals focus on carbon dioxide equivalent emissions. EPCBCA needs to account for upstream emissions life cycle analysis. Best FCA includes upstream emissions policy must minimize upstream focus on indirect emissions such as land use, including downstream emissions would be impractical and jeopardize the broader policy. The emission standard provides a clear target. The standard reflects average intensity of a good sector or sector laggers are put a standard pegged to average intensity automatically updated. This creates a continuous incentive safeguards. Need to ensure a country cannot choose or export lowest emission products. This resource shuffling allows producers to reduce exposure to fees without lowering emissions. The EPCA could apply based on individual firms. This creates a stronger firm level instead of decarbonizing instead of being cheap for facilities outside the country and territory. A different fee for different sectors can be tailored to mitigate job treaties. $20 maybe needed critical minerals and plastics. $20 might suffice. A rate is based on cost of production domestic or clean producer proposals target trade exposed mentions intensive sectors, some explicit target sectors with the US laws production capacity where delight diversity creates vulnerabilities focus on adjustment with capacity of adjustment on finished goods looking for formidable and vision based on mechanism for allowing producers petition to add goods provide counterweight to instability. There are products for which the US currently is non-existing capacity BC could affect national security place which manages another option is exemptions. It's easy to administer. Roar 21 to charge imports high quality data already available. Companies reporting emissions that go grown threefold covers half the global market cap. Companies track emissions based on sustainable goods respond to trade partners and combat policy mean conservative made for lower carbon goods which data is already available and verifiable. Account from 80% US traded carbon as experience in carbon accounting is spending a price XPC expense to estimates are only available. Practices are well accepted. The IPC published guidelines benchmark can be set conservatively. Importers petition for lower value. They have to be disclosed. Companies trade the sake of a closure for the carry of a lower adjustment. Existing value tax has provided a proven model for the BCA CBP implicit tariffs scheduled for sensitive board adjustment. As no more complexity disclosure, importers already engaged with the board of the ITA to conduct investigation due diligence. The Justice Department pursue penalties. Trump would not circumvent Jenna Mail and range 21. New York administration should pay domestic pricing on import. Trump would support the policy because the tariffs of his strict choice of probable domestic industry revenue would be perceived as another way for Trump to offset losses from tax cuts. Federal action is key. Farmer 08 and seeking cooperation with the EU. California and country constitutional barriers are subject to explicit constitutional restrictions to export clause rights of state shall allay Judas are efforts applies to international trade. The plan creates a political support for decarbonization. Tucker and Meyer 22. Carbon leakage awakens the political support for decarbonization instead for jobs to move to developing countries. Biden linked climate goals to good jobs in the region have not benefited from liberalization. This linkage is critical support. Political support requires offsetting costs with economic benefits. Requires trade policy does not penalize countries for economically for decarbonization. Trade policy much more protect domestic efforts. Solution is a carbon tariff that avoids tax links and gives Dems an effective climate message. Meyer 24. Biden raised tariffs on oil price. Biden made China's confusing by back for 20-30 years. African started to raise costs. Policy rules in America by carbon price after service is because obstacle to climate policy is lack of domestic coalition that supports decarbonization. The essential aim of neutral policy to be creating an enduring coalition. This is getting by this policy toward a powerful durable coalition that is the aim of the IRA and tariffs. Biden wants to see the U.S. makes headway on emissions by imports all tech from China. The U.S. has to develop its own supply chain manufacturing. Build a deep coalition trade restrictions become central that admin emphasizes jobs and the rich is falling. That may not matter. Companies support policy by doing so well. It fixes investments factories, not labor. The midterms prove Meyer 22. There should have been climate backlash when penalized Dems in 1993-2009. This time, Dems of the IRA aimed to turn the best midterm performance of the generation. The GOP really made an issue of the IRA, never mentioning it as the idea that policy should create pro-decarbonization coalition. The U.S. removed politically far less harmful than the ideal climate policy to make fossil fuels more expensive. That allows them to make the most ambitious steps ever to cut fossil fuels. And this is reassuring the countries in June less and let's term a backlash policy to that and tentatively avoid political blowback. Go back to the trade advantage. The plan creates a U.S.-EU coalition that breaks Russia's energy export dominance. Word 22. There's way to neutralize Russian energy defense. BCA translated fee and energy security. Russian natural gas comes with 40% more life cycle emissions than U.S. LNG creates an opportunity for U.S. exports to reduce Europe's reliance on Russia. Europe will cooperate. Saha and Kaufman 23. The EU initially responded to that restricts Russia and Ukraine. Deonti 1020. The EU's increased purchase of Russian energy funding the soil and Ukraine. The result is unbound with news. Geopolitical safety favor adversaries. 50% of budget has been oil and gas exports. Russian growth is about 40%. Embargoes are sanctioned theory. Russian energy purchase makers said 20% EU. Money kept like chemical Russia managed to rebuild its merchant isn't too late. Russia to isolate it from the energy markets. Otherwise, nuclear war. Budget 24. Russia possesses a world arsenal including battlefield nukes, latest changes in use nuclear production spend. Stars training for weapons, nuclear use might be more likely when it's winning. Hiroshima, Nagasaki, term of the war, cookies, because the division they allow the U.S. to impose unconditional surrender. Mark the credit surrender.
So the plan prices imports. Who pays the price?
The firms who are exporting the goods to the U.S.
Where are those firms located?
Wherever the good is imported from. So like that could be countries that export to the U.S. like China or developing countries.
So the plan prices imports coming from China. Those are the countries that internalize the cost of the price. The
it's also
China scenario about disrupting supply chains. What evidence says that China is going to disrupt supply chains now?
Yeah, the Fishman evidence says that China is a primary supplier of 24 of 50 minerals that
Right,
gives
it
them.
says that it's dominant in supply
Yeah,
chains
and then
at best,
the
it's charitable
Martin
reason,
evidence
but-
says that domination over minerals and semiconductors risks and enables Chinese aggression over Taiwan, specifically because supply chain disruption threatens military.
Well,
the
no,
U.S.
that is
military
the
is
impact,
affected.
right? That's impact of supply chain disruption.
Yeah, it says that
but
they
what
have an
evidence
intent.
says that China is disrupting supply chains now? No evidence
The
even
Martin
says that they're
evidence says
dominant
that
now.
China has an intent to disrupt supply chains to take advantage of the U.S.'s semiconductor dependence.
Where?
Fishman also does.
And
It says that COVID exposed key vulnerabilities that China could exploit in the future.
Okay, sure. The Russia thing, what evidence says that LNG money, Europe's LNG money, is necessary for Russia's success in Ukraine?
The internal link?
Yeah, the Rourke.
No, not that one. The
or-
restraint.
There we go. Geonti evidence says that a large
it
portion
says
of
that their budget goes towards the war in Ukraine. What evidence says that
Yeah,
money
it says an increasing
is what
purchase of
is
Russian.
winning them the war now?
Yeah, 50% of that budget has been the purchase of Russian and oil and gas. It says that, quote, increasing purchase of Russian energy is funding its ongoing
Right, but
assaults
your
in Ukraine.
impact card is making claims, about how Russia's irrational, they're revisionist, whatever. If that's the case, why would it be true that if they think they're going to lose the war, they would just concede? Why wouldn't they just launch a nuke?
No, what? You haven't. Our evidence
But
says that
I'm
the
asking-
reason Russia
I'm
would
asking
launch a
about the
nuke
lack
is
of an
to end
internal
the.
link between no money for Ukraine and Russia
No, there
launches
is a clear internal link. The Geonti evidence says that funding is key to Russia winning or Russia being in
why
a
is
position
winning
of
in
victory,
Ukraine
and being in a position of
necessary to
victory
no
enables
nuclear
them to
war?
launch a
That's
nuke.
fine, we're going in circles.
Yeah.
So this is where the Bujarin card comes in. It says that
Yeah,
Russia is
you're
more
right.
likely to
It's-
win or to use if it's winning
fine.
to secure a quick end to the war and
Sure,
unconditional
but no
surrender from
evidence
Ukraine.
says that funding is key to winning the war.
You don't need
That
money to win
internal
a
link
war.
between
You need money to wage a
competitiveness and
war.
deterrence failure on Advantage 1, what is it?
Yeah, manufacturing competitiveness is essential to the effectiveness and innovation of the military. It says that industrial strength is important
Okay,
to
what
project
evidence
deterrence.
says that what evidence establishes that part of the internal link, that it goes towards the military, or that military manufacturing is made more competitive by the plan?
The Milko evidence says that manufacturers currently are being punished because they
It's
have
about
to
manufacturing
decarbonize.
generally, not the military.
Well, manufacturing contributes to the military. You have to read evidence that they are somehow exempt.
Adolf, climate, trade. You all ready? Yeah.
1 second.
Oh.
Yes, I.
Panel. Great. Gonna get started. First off is Topicality in the United States refers to areas under U.S. jurisdiction. Kravich, 88, the definition of the United States, all places subject to the jurisdiction of the U.S. Decarbonization is a reduction of emissions produced by the combustion of fossil fuels. Cho 22, U.S. specific decarbonization of the first reducing emissions produced by the combustion of fossil fuels by running through zero carbon energy and clarifying as many sectors as possible. Violation of the plan induces decarbonization of fossil fuels combusted outside the United States. Vote negative for limits and ground. Their innovation blows the lid off the topic by delegitimizing U.S. support for any global mitigation action instead of no connection to U.S. industry that makes preparation impossible and undermines negative ground, which is all premised on burdening domestic industries with the cost of compliance. Next off is Topicality. Economy-wide energy policy must have a broad impact throughout the economy. Followers of community energy policy, carbon national energy planning policy, broad about energy and overarching national energy strategy policy, energy policy for potential purposes or limited focus do not fit this definition of directions under SCA independent energy policy, but not wider actions like wider energy policy strategy. Vote negative for lips and ground. Their interpretation blows the lid off the topic by allowing policy interventions in any tiny subsector of the economy. Our interpretation ensures the affirmative makes broad, meaningful change from the status quo, which is the basis of all negative ground. Next off is the rebates category. The United States federal government should apply an output-based rebate scheme based on the emissions performance of imported articles, rebate self-leakage, and competitiveness while avoiding political backlash. Boring 22 approach involves rebating carbon pricing measures based on emissions testing policy for additional reductions, making money more generous for difference. Research suggests rebates offer protection against leakage and competitiveness losses while lowering the price needed to achieve a given level of reductions can improve political feasibility. Next off is the states counterplan. The 50 state governments and other relevant subnational governments should apply an emissions performance border carbon adjustment to imported articles. State climate action solves sends a credible signal, won't be preempted in cost of federal follow-on. Selling and Van Deaver 20 U.S. states typically generate experiments and all multi-state emissions reduction initiatives include RBS efficiency standards together measures and never giving ideas and info proliferate policy members and they add some policies to later renewable energy efficiency carbon markets and so on. States drive a little bit above it. Survive state and federal court challenges the coordination of the collaborative efforts, increase pressure on state federal policymakers, regulate some members to international meetings, expanding roles of international evidence on its way, made efforts from U.S. administrations. Next off is takings. The United States federal judiciary should determine the absence of applying an emissions performance border carbon adjustment to imported articles in clean energy policies and unconstitutional. Taking. The United States federal judiciary should create a binding cause of action against state or federal officials who violate the takings clause, irrespective of qualified and sovereign immunity. The counterweights also that adopting policy accountable plan establishes precedent for passive takings and avoids politics. Badashnik 19 placing a climate the government's mind trains back to raise takings claims Christians would be providing the government liable given the change in law with direct cost of loss of value. Passive takings rise when government such as statutory scheme and change in circumstances make that obsolete that might be liable for passive taking to force the government to internalize externality to maximize social utility. No court yet attacked liability for inaction and circular link close to door. Action and action distinct no relevant music. The integration of takings owners has been relying on protection of copy cases takings allowed cost of life. In shortcoming that could be corrected by body takings quote encourage more efficient adaptation. That of ours owners to reduce economic and social inequality. Circuit 21 realities for owners right powers withheld in its municipal infrastructure side of the addition to country goods and distribution of productions capacity taking exert constitutional countervailing pressure demand regular response to discrimination from making subdivision persistent vulnerabilities switching mobility reduce chronic investment and second poverty conditions for predatory lighting everyone's health and reduce opportunity extinction. Schmidt and Juden 24 institutions matter disaster preparedness education health and science and other influence exit risk and use in the inequality weakening capacity to right evidence lead to capture less geared towards long term priorities more rent seeking reduce social capital and trust important for capacity to run to large scale despite conditions increase risk of war bioengineer virus launch misled AI personally or accidentally evidence suggests polarization increase economic inequality increase polarization. Next off is the Brazil DA agriculture exports are enabling Brazilian leadership. Lipsky and Busari 24 Lula Food Security Front Center the actual agenda Brasilia positioning itself leader with the food attack invested heavily in leading development expansion of farmland and adoption of rubber cropping investments significantly enhance ag productivity and gave Brazil an edge over other nations. Large economies now heavily rely on Brazil to secure food needs. Border adjustments kill Brazilian ag exports. Goes 12 border adjustments to US include agriculture. Agriculture is responsible for non-CO2 emissions by including agriculture with VDA systems bad on cutting relying on agricultural exports. For example, Brazil would be worse. Brazilian leadership in global governance prevents extinction. Hawk 20 big external threats include climate inequalities and failure to cooperate to mitigate global risks, strategy possibilities, and health and tech. Brazil will not lead the next decade of big recent immense resource 40% of forest and 40% of fresh water managed on the inland world, but collapsing Brazil's consequences will come to survival, strengthening multilateral coalition, but it's the best time to realize if DEFO persists, irreversible die-off, convert deforests into savanna governments, retrieve multilateral natural productism. Brazil will keep breath engaged by fragile protests and arrests or dangerous we can fight back and leveraging scientific progress, stepping out of government zones, but rebuild the positive vision. Next off is the oil DA, oil is key to Kazakhstani stability and transition, cause of state collapse, and Central Asian instability. BB 24 the year of the oil might reduce growth and social stability of the economy, globally the root cause of social political unrest. Oil plated dominant generating international resources, 80% of Kazakhstan's oil is exported. 2 factors in oil from Kazakhstan. First, renewables, reduced use of oil, oil from Kazakhstan. Kazakhstan finds itself at the heart of geopolitical tension between Europe and the US. Russia and China even now new lieutenant and efficiency could give Kazakhstan a short breath, it would not change long-term concerns. Extinction blank 12 Arab Spring into the East Asia spread and triggering explosion civil wars where Moscow receives a treaty for everybody focused on nervous system exported war also escalate beyond anyone's control and trigger for a war that escalated vertically to the nuclear level can escalate horizontally through the Middle East. Now the climate advantage, a carbon tax locks in path dependence treason and mailing 24 companies that lock in short-term evidence to find the cheapest way to avoid cost cannot bring long-term cost transformative innovations high initial cost low cost sources facility avoidance polluters pay tax and territory on studies find innovation under pressing given laws and zero emission sex short-term encourage achieve fixed and injury infrastructure including which the NEG has supported structural locks and existing tech deployment requires changing to make clean energy even possible and to reduce present lasting and many of its rising carbon prices cannot reduce emissions because they do not have capital problems they have to do with the rise have to do with source tech aggregation land use institutions and infrastructure. CBAM fails to prevent leakage and fuels emissions. Star at all 23 CBAM institution nozzle leakage reduced from 11 to 7.7%. All models has made competition unilateral abatement CBAM reduce countries to increase GHG emissions. Exporters exploit loopholes. Wise block in core tube 23 exporters to find selling final or partial goods not submitted to border tax of reverse and any of encouraging shifting production raw to exporting switch fuel sources using clean for export to the US and dirty for the others and transfer goods through countries making goods appear from high-tech country opportunities for to be leach and models of deadly overestimate of adjustment. Even successful, it does not have sufficient scope. Morisanu and Bray 22 US compared to small part of the global total of carbon tax will inadequate advocates no action give pressure countries only marginal bad for emissions because countries export not to mention the US are alone are a fairly small part of their emissions profile no existential climate event Discovery 24 adaptation affordable because risks and underlying IBC acknowledge the hard model problem actually ECS according to where it should be 1 and 2 degrees Celsius despite worst case alarm IBC reports which 20% to low confidence any change in ag and eco drought virus observation waves air pollution radiation and climatic impact driver times a lot of nerves unrealistic border moderate illusory compared alternative records such as based contamination from non-climate environments GC and closing inadequate showing evidence of warming bias and natural availability gravity carbon and net zero necessary compelling evidence of impact disaster any assets community rest through adaptation no war fighting impact or competitiveness impact Mueller 21 alarms from the state all fit into the history stuff and Iran open neither major mitigation requirements to name and do not require the US to maintain large forests 20 times to build up its sanctions and diplomatic forests fail and check Russia and China. Mueller 16 US seems free from threats that are military preparedness company overwhelming costly China leader realizes Russia's strategy not suggest the game is changed against rogue states and military requirements are limited concerns about political around Taiwan remains a real concern trade advantage trade is stable and growing but vulnerable to further fragmentation ID 1023 WTO is for limited will increase by 2.7% year on year increased net inflation of all expected right to company renewable to the plans unilateral border carbon adjustment violates international law devastates the last semblance of global trade MNS 22 issued lead illegal algorithms of WTO consistent BTA the canal battle unilateral BCA and trade diversion in to countries and creates integration of trade flows between dirty and clean studies providing legal evidence CBM equivalent to tariff raise problems environmental as well as trade CDRB bears the legitimacy of barrels BTS and rules of origin increasingly complex and administratively onerous, increasing trade tensions, reviewing liability, posing legal uncertainties for legal action for the WTO countries, decided to protect retail, limiting global trade and co against an already shaken trading system. US-EU trade disputes are inevitable. Fixed in Carlo 24, many years into US-EU relations are caught in ever discounting without entering into solid divergence, but it protects policy, the IRA, Ukraine, high tariffs for the ongoing disputes, gas, Europe C-ban, EU does not comply with WTO agreements, exposed federal diversity, climate, tech, targeting attack in the US war detail, Mid-East provides a mixed agricultural cycle and populism, be significantly far right, emerge victorious and create and enact isolation policies for the reputation, ability to coordinate the response to the threats, skepticism towards trade, increased illusion with transatlantic relations, leadership high now, Higgins, 24 US return, fair to the international agreement to help win the first United States of all countries to call for a global transition from fossil fuels, first time consensus on climate action, the US has come with a whole lot of responsible and non-governments, Trump, but amounts to the greatest economic progress is delivering benefits for decades, and no trade impact, Martin, 24, everything independence, the level in which conflict is currently unthinkable, history is literally becoming a peace is because independence, freedom, parties go to war, world war, people not assure peaceful future, war occurs due to irrationality, other actions viewed as inevitable, desirable, prevented, even its natural interest as an inherent feature, no supply chain, shocks, impact, Roberts, 23, debates, frame trade-offs in black and white, and diversity, coupling, binaries, and realistic, systemic resilience involved the capture of the robots and co-change, transforming involves permanent structural changes, subversion, adaptation, transformation, make of code in Ukraine, and results from grow stronger, the votes, threats, and basic economic global markets, and the nervous side, those trading, adapt, and redirect inventory, telling responsibility, decouple rules of continued engagement, do great adapted average, try to make the market easier, and future trade disruptions, average, decoupling, practical, covers adapt, the address, climate intentions, policy build resilience, gives IRA, infrastructure, and jobs, reduce supply chain vulnerabilities. That's first.
Yeah.
Classified Russian war documents show that Russian threshold for use is lower than we thought. Any conventional escalation that Russia believes it couldn't win justifies an escalated de-escalation strategy with limited nuclear use. They would lash out if they lost on Ukraine, China, 24. Russian classified papers describe a threshold for using TWs lower than Russia's Russian nuclear weapons policy is dangerous, clear aggression. Highlighting these threats, Russia's leaders make clear view these weapons as a high shield, as a shield behind which to wage unjustified aggression is possible. Action raised Russian nuclear weapons, but if the use threshold when lost suffered would lead to failure to stop major enemy aggression in a critical situation for state security. Conditions specify nuclear weapons aggression against Russia with conventional weapons. Each allows first use unlike with Russian nuclear weapons use to stop in territory. This is very permissive, allows a good direction without conventional attack. The threshold is lower than it was. Heavy losses on to ground forces and great amounts of civilian capabilities increase its reliance on nuclear weapons. Russia's capability would weaken Russia's reliance on TWs poses a serious problem. The vast reduction to the US and NATO and theater nuclear capabilities greatly up. The US lacks commensurate weapons could retaliate with bullets and missiles or strategic bombers making full-scale nuclear exchange routes use would move the confident around Russia is equipped to dominate. Relations do not restrain Russia. We're trying it now and it's not working. No Russia impact either?
Nah, you don't have to read that.
Okay.
Can we get those cards before cross-ex?
Yeah.
Yeah. It should just be one, right?
Yeah.
Can you skip the critique?
Yeah. Is that cross-ex? I'm just fucking.
Too late for jokes.
Listen, jokes are allowed in the third place debate, not in the final debate.
I sent that.
Okay, let me know.
I'm ready.
I'm good.
Okay. The T argument. The plan incentivizes domestic companies to decarbonize to maintain their competitiveness. Why is this not decarbonization in the US?
Well, does the mandate of the plan apply to companies in the United States?
The way that the BCA is calculated is subtracting the difference between domestic and foreign emissions intensities. So,
But
like,
you're not
the
applying-
1AC evidence
You're not applying
says...
the decarbonization measure to companies in the United States, right?
Well, okay, wait. What, like, obviously... What do you think is the... Oh, different question. Does a carbon tax and a BCA, is that topical?
So, what? Sorry, a carbon tax with or without a BCA?
With a
With.
BCA.
With a BCA, that's not topical.
Okay. Is a consumption carbon tax topical?
You speak more about that. What is that?
Like
what does
a
that mean?
tax on consumption of carbon, like if you are
where?
consuming carbon
For the
intensive
purposes
goods,
of this
then
topicality in the United States violation?
yes.
I mean, well, depends on like what is being taxed or who is being taxed. If
Like
it's
a tax on, like a sales tax, like when a consumer purchases a product that's carbon intense, is that topical? Like
And-
taxing that?
and those consumers are within the United States?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
neat.
great. The economy-wide interpretation, what is the violation?
The economy-wide, so you only apply to goods in a subset of the economy. So there are some measures within the United States economy that are not affected by the plan as a result of the border carbon
What
adjustment being
like,
applied globally.
Wait, so is this just like another in the U.S. violation, or
This is not another in the U.S. violation.
Okay, so
the
what
plan
is the
does not
difference?
apply economy-wide because it does not affect all energy flows within the economy.
Only if I stand for it.
Would
It
it?
only affects imports. It's a great distinction.
Sure. Okay. Status condo.
Yes, conditional.
Okay. The takings counterplan, does it fiat that the state official, or like that the takings clause is enforced against immunity?
It does not fiat that the plan is the mandated outcome. It compels, it declares that the absence of applying an emissions performance border carbon adjustment to imported articles in clean energy policy
Okay,
is
you
an
don't have to read
unconstitutional
the
taking
counterplan.
that may or may not
But
result in
like,
the plan.
if we were to read evidence that the qualified immunity would apply and overcome violation of the takings clause, that would not be fiated away by the counterplan?
I'm sorry, I don't understand that question.
Like, if we were to read evidence that the counterplan's precedent does not, like,
Result in the plan
apply,
does not compel the plan.
like, the takings clause violation does not get enforced and immunity overrides that, can the counterplan fiat
Are you asking me if you
out-
can say no, like the courts would not listen to their own precedent?
Does the counterplan fiat that the precedent,
Is
like,
upheld?
fiat the precedent into existence?
Well,
basically?
what is the precedent you're asking
Okay,
about?
I don't think you understand my question. Whatever, I have like 8 seconds.
10. That's it. 7:43. Or wait, actually.
No. Oh shit. No, we're good.
Yes. Is that when you have?
Yeah.
Oh.
Like,
Then yes. Okay, great. 7:26. Yeah, that's right. Definitely. Okay, I'm sending it.
Fill that out by any chance?
No, it's got a little left.
Okay. Decarbonization advantage, trade advantage, T in the United States, T subsets, states, takings, rebates, Brazil, Kazakhstan. Am I dropping anything? I don't think so.
Nice little exclamation point in the 2AC document. demonstrates to me that you're very excited.
I'm very excited to get this, Tracy.
Glad to hear that.
What?
Don't worry about it.
Shut up, buddy.
He said glad to hear it. Just let me know.
My word is crashing out a little bit. As soon as it stops that, I will deliver my tail. No, I'm not dropping anything, right? Sick. Okay. Hello? Please? Okay, there we go. Okay, great. Everybody's got it. We're good to go?
Yep.
1 and C, 1 is taxation fails, 1 only to tax the plan is under domestic tax, 2 drives domestic decarbonization to maintain cost of energy, evidence, empirics, 3 drives global action to circumvent the tax, even if that is quote cheaper, low hanging fruit is still valuable and better than the status quo. 4, importantly, it protects domestic decarbonization from things like EPA rules and the IRA, which protects against leakage. CBM does offset leakage, no criticism about the EU, which is only a couple of sections, which is 1 and C2, 1 and C3 is no shift in final goods. The plan calculates total embedded emissions, which is loopholes. 1 and C4 is yes, existential warming, social shocks and total, it causes social shocks and total systemic collapse, it causes feedback loops and different points, which means that it's impossible to model. The argument is not literally hot house earthquake conjoined, uncertain risk, scientific, or systemically conservative. 2, the sort of deflate the risk to the public so they don't freak out. 1 and C5 is yes, warning warfighting impact and tips down the sort of capacity to share in China, North Korea, etc. The current layer of global assurance is uniqueness for our impact. The trade advantage. 1 and C. 1 is the trade turn, which 1 trade is unsustainable. Global financial crisis, COVID, Ukraine produced backlash to globalization, drove countries toward national independence. That's a controversial element. 2, the uniqueness is about trade volumes, which is relevant to their and our impact. Their immigrants about this quote. 3, domestic collapse and support for liberal trade is inevitable. Only question of what replaces it. Herald 24 job of vision of protection, special trade variable, trade variable, drawing bonds, support required the government to think that will shift away from regional deals, rising or address problems such as climate, the DPP, Congress, etc. Express capitalism, Hillary, Trump, plus bad initiatives to not provide market access initiatives, bring controversial, Trump double down on tariffs, so there's current evidence. New trade deals can get through Congress for only the plain rescue trade and the long-term developing a trade model that supports domestic policy priorities like climate instead of undercutting them variables. Somewhere that's a contrary and work. 5, no protectionist by all countries except the plan so they can retain access to the U.S. market even if there is a blip on the radar. They initially don't like it. That's work. 6, no internally one-off protectionist policies are high now, but they don't produce total deglobalization, which is necessary for their impact. That's so contrary. For example, Biden tariffs on China, which is the 1 C cards about the election. 1 C2 is US-EU cooperation, not our impact. 1 C3, climate leadership, also not our impact with absurdness. That's 1 C. 4, yes, trade impact is not interdependence. Is the key to broader cooperation on poverty, climate, disease, etc. All of our evidence is sending PhDs. That's all that is existential. 1 C. 4 is or 5 is yes, supply chain shocks. All cause world wars. 1 and 2 and dribbles the economy, which means that leaders differ to respond. 1 C6 is Russia lost. Bad and is wrong. Our evidence says it is more likely if they are winning, which is the status quo, because they will try to end the war quickly in a way that is favorable to them. I'm gonna finish this 1 C card now. Incentives for Russia will not be simpler. Russia steadily pushing against Ukraine resistance looks far more like than Saudi Arabia. Russian troops with victory inside will be attempting to launch international political costs for breaking the taboo could be mitigated by winning. Russia nuclear use when losing is wrong. Been hoofed on 21 official sphere. Russia is modernizing and escalate to de-escalate is far from clear whether this accurately describes Russia's strategy bears no resemblance to limited nuclear options beneath. Saber rattling Russians are actively seek to increase the threshold of nuclear use. The something, whatever I said is first. T in the U.S. 1, we meet the plan drives domestic emissions reductions. Industries will decarbonize to widen their cost advantage. That's Fishman. 2, counter-interpretation. Decarbonization means less carbon graduate. And all 24 decarbonization policies reverse strategies development policy makers to mitigate compensations, problems, and reduction in quantities of carbon releases as a result of reduction or offsetting. 3, topical aspects reduce consumption emissions in the United States. Walton. 24, reduction emissions of production view fail to capture consumption. A more complete measure of countries' contribution to climate change from perspective of industry professionals. Look out for clear understanding is critical in understanding policies. Key national emissions are associated with goods imported from abroad. That seems like a sensible emission to the health form of clear picture we turn to consumption. Assessment production vehicle emissions is an important part of GHG emissions consumption. Measures to provide a more accurate account of a country's emissions that is fair to developed countries can claim net zero while importing emissions as well. It's important questions around decarbonization. 4 means policy. Purpose. State 3, the word 4 means the purpose of. C. Webster's 4 purposes are plural because Congress is plural. Shepsel. 92 Congresses they nominate individuals have intentions and collections do not prevent it or pretend otherwise advance political suggest even if there were no intent. Court tax. I find this not again starting nautical prudence that require belief in the flat earth legislative intent is nonsense. 5 off-ground BCAs are key. States answer and ensure innovation. Their topic is upstream carbon tax only, which is stale and cannot foster research and education. 6, net ground only trade-offs meaningfully decarbonize sector energy mixes that don't lead to link to leakage good. 7, functional limits energy mix does that stay politics in the markets. K, makes the topic secretly tiny. 8, predictability. There's no stable bright light for where decarbonization occurs. Unpredictable in terms of races T over substance insurance. Clash 9, no limits expansion consumption emissions means the AFF can only affect imports to the U.S. global offsets and completely extraterritorial effect is not topical. Subsets. When we meet the plan can apply to all sectors, there's no right for a broad impact to energy policy includes production and use, but like aid energy policy can be the approach by which a given action concerning action concerning production, distribution, and consumption. Energy policy is concerned with supply, demand, and implementation. Energy policy can be defined as action addressing use of energy resources. The most explicit attempt to define energy policy notes energy policy analysis, economic, environmental, political planning aspects of energy supply and utilization. 3, over limiting supply only limits lab controversies like tax credits, energy mix, and permitting reform. And their AFF their topic is only one affirmative, which always loses to pigs. 4, no ground loss, core negative stats are based on the energy mix, which demand side effects equally. 5, arbitrariness. Their definition is contextual. No consensus. Arbitrariness causes shifting goalposts that cause a race to the bottom. 6, new affirmatives are good. Key to get coaches out of the room and incentivize strategic thinking. States counterplan 1, it's preempted. Counterplan states cannot impose international terrorist acts, and the Constitution cannot be clear. That's forever. 2, both gets packages federal fall onto unanimous state demands, which shields the link. The counterplan alone links harder because it requires federal attempts to split with every state party. 3, links that benefit would be perceived as nationwide action, so the other countries would backlash. Takings. 1, it's uncertain because it looks like the result of a long drawn out the separation of powers battle. That's key to investment and planning for global decarbonization. Carbon and Natal. 22, US GHG taxes being effective need to be credible and only partially credible. First, will not consider future increase. 1, planning investment that's slow transitionally. Partially credible policies that will double the cost for transitioning. 2, as a result, the AFF, the counterplan retains the option to justly compensate circuit. 14, taking for the next owners, the paradigmatic taking involves ownership property being taken for public use without just compensation. 3, do the counterplan then adopt the plan's tariffs that is not intrinsic because it adds the timeline of the counterplan's process. Doesn't ever because it mandates the plan. It should. Does not mean immediate enable. 20, future because I'm sure it specifies the speaker thinks it's a good idea. We're talking about action in the future. Our pattern is subject should and present tense. 4, the present tense verb. 4, do both. 5, the counterplan delays because the court battle takes a while. It can't solve it in time because every increment of waiting worsens climate change. 2, 11, there is no time to wait in climate change. Like complicated, stabilizing, waking up, driving costs of emissions. Carbon tax now is the most effective way to reduce emissions. 6, to the counterplan. 7, to the counterplan of the counterplan's taking process over something else. Applying the counterplan's actions to a new object is limited in test hour to germane opportunity cost that locks in depth. Debating with app specific cards that's not functionally intrinsic because subtracting specification means the counterplan has less functions. 8, no internal like the conservative court wouldn't expand the precedent of the counterplan. 9, no impact because there is no sort of terminal in any of their cards, and it's all just word salad begin to answers when they read a real argument. Rebates. 1, do both. It shields the net benefit, which it is not entirely clear what it is, but insofar as it makes domestic U.S. ag competitive, it links to the net benefit, or U.S. ag and oil competitive, it links to the net benefits equally. 2, it does not solve global decarbonization because it does not impose a cost on other emitters. 3, do the counterplan. 4, the tax is incoherent. You cannot impose an emissions performance for exports based on imports. That is not illogical, and when they clarify the truancy, or the tax and the truancy, we get new answers. 5, it doesn't solve competitiveness because our impact is about domestic industry, not exporting industries, which means that it is important for protecting decarbonization within the United States. 6, that does not solve trade because it doesn't use trade tools. Our evidence says that is key. It doesn't reduce supply chain vulnerability nor resolve Ukraine because it doesn't prevent the U.S. from sort of importing from China and Russia. 7, conditionality is voting issue for 2 easy choice. We never invest in best counterplan answers because they create no cost for the NEG. It can only hurt the half on other pages. That disincentivizes the end of counterplan research and clash on both sides of choice. Education, disposed to easy choice. You can give away perm. Brazil. 1, EU CBAM, this is what all of their evidence is about. 2, global protectionism, thumbs on the trade side. 3, Brazil does not export food to the U.S. We get new answers when they read a card that says that they do, but the U.S. produces food domestically. 4, the plan boosts least developed economies and no counter, it does not form a counterblock fisherman at all. 24. Cover all countries that concern is pushing countries closer to partners that do not change the few of any LDCs export significant goods covered closer examination. Elites suggest least developed benefit from a pollution fee new entrance to the global market. Increased global market share LDCs should be exempted. Gives the rest of leakage concerns for circumvent the fee shifting production. LDCs are using LDCs to pass through partnerships aligned LDCs in the U.S. interest in the U.S. help establish a glide path for reducing emissions and attract investment. 5, for mobile BCA costs tech transfer, which solidifies Brazilian leadership. Fishman et al. 24, and BCA should go to apply based on individual firms to accelerate transfer of low carbon technologies to developing countries that host farm production. 6, Brazil is not key to global governance. This card says nothing, and obviously the U.S. China and Russia fill in the case solves it better. 7, Brazil will just shift to exporting food elsewhere because there will always be a demand for food given a growing global population. 8, the plan does not have to cover food because it's not emission intensive nor trade exposed, and they have not read cards about the specific mechanism of the plan, which is detailed in the Fishman evidence. Kazakhstan. 1, collapse of oil demand, inevitable. EPA, IRA, and renewables are becoming cost competitive. That's when St. Francis 2 suppliers know it. They use revenue from high prices to transition instead of doubling down. 21, high prices discourage demand on the other, encourage supply, but higher prices so far provided weaker stimulus to investment firms. Reaching a tipping point, they know transition coming out of this time for carbon tax and price would be by far the most efficient way to limit warming. 3, a warming increases short-term price volatility by creating a systemic breakdown and unpredictable the effects on the economy, which is the impact on the case for oil cut by 2030. Countries need to diversify now, which 24, global oil cut means OPEC loses the ability to manipulate prices by decade. History, so we guess about some of the supply demand, EVs take over, renewables account for primary energy. Russia, Saudi don't have long to diversify supply, outstrips demand 5-fold next year. 5, oil prices depressed now. Kimball, 24, U.S. oil doubling and raising speculation hit a session lower race 2024 when demand uncertain oil prices have been under pressure after weak manufacturing reunited slowdown reactions. Show weak sentiment we wouldn't read into increases without prices depressed. Increases will be paused. 6, COVID dumps. It was a major oil price shock, which means that if it did not cause their impact, the plan wouldn't either. 7, Kazakhstan scenario is stupid. They are not a relevant geopolitical player, obviously not a vector for X. 8, Russia is in no position to open another front. 23 chances of Russia invading not just submit as they were bringing on crazy and incomprehensible Russian army. Forced their two tight down in Ukraine. The rural Kremlin is in no position to open a second front from an original 30,000 that face the Baltics 80%. But ever to Russia's 11th Army Corps, tasked with the Colonial Land has been destroyed. It will be take years to reassemble. It is in no position to launch any type of military offensive.
Ready for cross checks?
Yep.
Okay. Takings. Why does the counterplan blow up the separation of powers?
Well, the counterplan has the court compel the Congress to do a policy by ruling that failing to do so is a taking.
Have you read a card that says it compels the Congress to do something?
The text of the counterplan has the court find that it is an unlawful taking to not have the policy applied.
And that results in a separation of powers blow up how?
Well, it does not, like, we have not read an impact to, like, separation of powers, so the argument does not need to be that, like, literally it is illegal.
Well, that
It
was
is
the
that-
warrant for the uncertainty piece, right?
Yeah, well, so, like, it is not, it does not need to be, like, this misallocates power in the government. Rather, it is that it is the result of a domestic, drawn-out political fight, and that makes decarbonization look uncertain in the future, particularly because it hinges on what the, like, conservative court says, for example, and they are famously not a great steward of reliance interest recently, which means that the impact card that I read about uncertainty says that that drives the sort of sustainability of global investments.
I've got a different question. What,
Yes.
So, does this Herald card speak to a CBAM?
Wait, where are you?
By mistake, trade DA.
Uh-huh.
Is this Herald card about a CBAM?
I don't think so.
Okay.
because-
What cards have you read in the debate that says that a CBAM is defensible and does not collapse trade? Is it just this one AC card that you've read
Well, the several 1AC cards that are good and long.
that says that a CBAM does not collapse trade?
Yeah.
Which ones?
The ones on the trade advantage, Akash.
I mean, it just seems like it's this work card.
The work card is good. The Okonjo Iweala card says that in order to sustain the trade system, we need to have trade that internalizes the cost of pollution for exporters. And the Sutton card is certainly about a CBAM. It says that if the U.S. and the EU had if the U.S. had an approach
What
to
is the
trade.
Sutton card?
What's that?
Where's the Sutton card?
The second card. So I went 3-1-2.
I
The second card.
got
The
you.
Sutton card is like, if the U.S. had an approach to trade that demonstrated that we could have a model of trade that was not just hyper-liberalization and instead was about protecting domestic policy and sort of solving problems through trade, it describes that as
Why?
proof of concept and sticking the landing for developing a new model of trade.
Okay, so it seems like all of these cards are referring to some sort of industrial policy, like we need to subsidize domestic industry to sort of do certain things. Why does punishing like external fossil fuel producers link up with these cards?
Do you think that, like, I am just stupid and, like,
I
can't
mean, I
read?
think this
like,
AFF is pretty tough against the trade DA.
Okay,
I don't think you're
for
stupid,
sure.
Holland. I respect you very much.
Right on. The work card is from the Climate Leadership Council, who has been publishing exclusively about why the U.S. needs a carbon tariff. The Sutton card is from Trevor Sutton, who also has been doing that for forever, and says that the U.S. should not have a domestic pricing approach, but should have an external tariff. And then the Okonjo Iweala card says the internalizing externalities thing that I just said.
And
None of these are
but
about industrial
the only
policy.
card that's talking about a CBAM is this work card, yeah?
No.
Okay, again,
Were you listening for, like, the last 2 minutes of me
I
talking?
very much was, and I was reading the cards at the same. Okay.
Okay.
Starting.
Should've laughed until Helen couldn't read.
No.
Double down.
That's mean.
That was 15 seconds. Actually 5.
Bird.
Just attach it. Okay. I sent it. Orders case I'll do the second advantage, so the trade advantage and then the first advantage. For some reason my document closed, so I'm gonna read it next.
Give me 2 seconds to open the
It's just case. I sent out.
Yeah.
Okay.
Kind of love that. Kind of obsessed. You said you're starting on the trade advantage?
Yeah.
Sick. And I assume you're starting with offense.
Yes.
Got it.
Okay. Everyone's good? Cool. First argument on the trade advantage is unstable. That is wrong. Global trade is staying afloat despite current pressure. That's the medicine. AFF factors are boosting. Trade trawl and lauders 1017. Not pessimistically trajectory. Do much worse. Not on to reverse. Independence been moderating good. News for trade inflation and return price stability. And the app has 3 warns. 1 global financial crisis that was over a decade ago, and all other uniquenesses prove. Second is COVID rebound after. This proves that third is Ukraine also started 2 years ago, and is price and deglobalization is a misnomer. Prefer nuance. Analysis. Bader 24 global trade 2023 declines. Normalization extraordinary rebound 2021 and widely accepted managed shift toward services. They've suggested expansion trade ratio global trade decline overwhelmingly influenced by China and incalculated ratio swinging China around declining the ratio continuing to rise accelerated remains about China evidence shift to deglobalization despite who have reshoring trees obstacles shifting and patterns of this history thought at worst deglobalization will be minimal and gradual but it's disruptive. Shock ruins at Carnally 24 deglobalization during gradual this down stress companies need significant change in technical skill and rose lack the domestic supply of the world deglobalizing into momentarily trades with growth space has an overall growth prefer evidence 1 empirics FT 24 concern over industrial politics IRA about standing alarms over cross-border moves multiplied data multiple shocks intervention of rising but in fact some clear models views won't have no shock not surprise reduced shock to I our rate American practice a week after the EU was actually used to data been restrained trying to return to hardly call for protection stations for show protections elements for media false alarms brave to show times different so there is not seem to be compelling at second is studies use of 24 globalization is slowing more than 5 million and 4 million data point tracking trade rebound is strongly expected to continue rise and barring acceptance of highly disruptive event the next R2EC2 is not about trade volumes exclusively but that is absolutely the internally because both are about the competitiveness of exports which rely on volumes their current trends are price in deck evidence post-case numbers said global trade is now on the rank is intuitive other measures were predictable clearly telegraphed and one is uniqueness from this month said trade is hanging on but plan flips that existing measures and offensive and have not had a serious impact page 24 trend may be point less than deglobalization less recalibration by terrorist trade iron the shares like yours to work to safeguard economies globalization taking shape to the governance free travel the world becoming more internet not more internet all less fragmentation some concern impact the spiders if their trends not going to take weight of globalization protections trends are exaggeratedly 24 what is not on trade tell us globalization picture marketplace and trade strong headlines just US China trade wars surprising things global trade increase purchasing to seek partners climb hosting trade contributing to production as a number of triple state of global competitive edge pretending leakage decoupling with turning wants picture with more detailed view emphasizing intricate connections the fourth argument is the plan solves that backwards uniqueness above disproves it but the link magnitude means other countries backlash and wrecks global trade solving US issues are also irrelevant. Solvency arguments below will disprove the spiral thing. No countries will not accept the plan. That is the other solvency arguments in the link will do the link here. The plan upends free trade, unilateral border adjustments, indistinguishable from Paris, legally awkward, and invents a host of legal disputes that the WTO and other forums perceived as illegitimate, triggering spiraling retaliation. It's the biggest threat to global trade by haphazardly bifurcating it into clean and dirty. The fear alone sends a global shockwave into that is the death knell for the last remains of free trade. That's meant as its unilateral character means it's seen as a pretext for further protectionism. Arkansas 23 amicable attempts to adjustment lies unilateral adjustment likely countries have infringement into the country fear police is pretext protectionism no consensus whether measures legal even introduced in the best intent of measures misuse and acceptance will inflict on sovereignty. There are 2 other independent links versus administrative complexity. Weisberg con 23 no trade for the determination of how parts of different countries use various types of mixable different customations to please lost accurate adjustment of sales and people multiplied countries compare comparable price and hardship no way to determine which how policy or complex opposed differentially and discrimination for the livable nature second is capture Smith 24 about discretion to institute here since her tax and not capture the and portion of proposal card of authority friend proxy of members on distortion analysis that doesn't countervalue duty calculated run seek and ancient capture master furniture lies and duty far exceed any that exists mark that card exists it's especially true post IRA clausing and Wolfram 23 US jurisdiction host MG intelligence industry average card cost under $1 on CBA political investor FCC protection needs a little adjustment for card US and low emission justifies random shoes that benefit energy subsidy tariffs fees on terror project keep competitive disadvantage relative US unravel policies lower support for producers for the level playing field with positive countervailing subsidy for unravel consequences the other jurisdictions including about protectionism in disguise third is dispute settlement I'm actually not gonna read that card the 2EC5 U.S. protectionism, it decimates climate mitigation, sovereign 23, tariffs used to protect investing industry, counterproductive for combating climate, being more incisive to stand the way competition, living, innovation, country trade, set standards, maximize environmental benefits, make different global shifts, clean energy, natural reducing costs, facilitating trend innovation. They can't say it doesn't. Turn competitiveness, McDonough 20, maintaining trade principles by recovering from prices of developed economies depend on trade within the short term, maintaining trade relations, technical avoiding global depression, and no internal answer above beneath this link approve the plan uniquely tips over the global trade regime and narrow trade systems certainly have an impact for defense about the economic system that is from decades ago. I'll read a card banning 24, searching tariff for states close to the U.S. trying to Russia incrementally harden economic policy deglobalization, society estimates public protection, 13 worse, with climate fragile failing states counting the increased gravitation and new geometry, U.S. troops power and safety appears to reinforce competition Moldova, where the Baltic states might be next. Mark the card at next. The supply chain stuff, there's no internal link to disadvantage. Not a single piece of evidence establishes why China is going to disrupt supply chains now at the very best. It says they're dominant. Even if you think this is intuitive, it's a card that's missing from the 1C, but COVID proves resiliency, chips, and the IRA also solve disruptions. That's the 1C card that I forgot the name of. I think it's Miller. The collapse of the United States alliance is inevitable. Holland just brushed this off, but this is conceded defense. EU and the U.S. are categorically misaligned on trade. The U.S. is protectionist. There are tariff disputes, and they aren't compliant with the WTO disagreement over the Middle East and big tech. That's based on Carlo. I did not flow any answers to this. The Twisi was incomprehensible on case and spread through their block, so you should err negative. The Russia stuff, there's no internal link to this advantage. The 1AC had read a card that says Europe's LNG sales to Russia fund the war in Ukraine, and then read an impact card that says Russia using a nuke would cause extinction, so there's no internal link between those two things. But regardless, we've turned it. If Russia lost in Ukraine, they would lash out and escalate, de-escalate. We have counter-defined how Russia decides to initiate conflict. The plan caused a loss of revenue for Ukraine, which causes Russia to lash out. China says that when Russia loses conflicts, they take it real personally. If we were conventionally beating them in Ukraine, they would rely on nukes because they have nothing left. There's an escalation back gap because the U.S. is far better with conventional capabilities like VMD. If they lose that advantage, they're fucked. Van Hoop just run before Ukraine, but obviously doesn't apply. I'll read another card. Weaver 23. The world is promised to be conventional superiority, limited use, abuse strategies, rooted in assumption, limited nuclear use, unlikely to escalate uncontrollably, hypothetical NATO strategy, reliance on uncontrolled escalation, extremely risk of option invasion, limited nuclear supply termination, conventional war terms, schedule for Russia defeat, option invasion, nuclear operations, and India's conventional force arrest terms, standard place without the existence of the states and perceive their option as a mutual rather to avoid those and give Russia strategies and mutual strengths of large scale strikes and the robots strikes and limited nuclear limited use for harms the ability of NATO for secure in the face of Russian limited escalation without being coerced. But a CBAM doesn't solve. Holland also brushed these off and said that they were about attacks. That is not true. I'm not reading more cards because they dropped it. 1. At most, it reduces leakage from 11 to 7%, which is not enough. That's Tatar evidence. 2. Exporters would switch to clean production for U.S. exports and dirty for their own consumption. That's WIPOC evidence. And 3. Exports are a tiny portion of other countries' emissions profile. That's Borsanu. These cards are factually about CBAMs. There's no tape backs. You didn't answer it, so you don't get it. The circumvention stuff, the fiat absolutely does not solve what the plan's mandate is. Actually, wait, I think did they drop the circumvention stuff? They did. So I'm not going to read more cards about it, but in case the 1AR tries to say fiat solves the plan's mandate is only the word, nothing more. It says the tax carbon without specification how it'll be designed or defined in turn. Plan basis was a choice. 2EC clarification is a voting issue. Whatever. They conceded that the plan gets circumvented. Competitiveness, they dropped defense to it. Countries will not be aggressive in response to economic competitiveness. That's Mueller. Turns the advantage, and the turns on the other advantage. Obviously, turn this because it results in Russian first use. No competitiveness impact. Russian Wolf for 16. Economic growth on the chains of military power. China is the only country where potential country relies technologically. No economic dominance. The red military superiority is not going anywhere. Nor is the alliance structure to constitute liberal order lasting preeminence. War not war between major powers. Leading towards innovative type 128 billion. Receive China receive 1 billion GDP underestimates true. Data structure to China breaking environmental accounts for GDP even to reduce economic capacity. Mark that card at capacity. Warming does not cause extinction when its trends indicate that survivable, rather than extreme warming is likely. Second is adaptation. Current ecological and tech trends are sufficient. And 3rd is systemic risk. This is proven even by the IPCC. 4. Perforate alpha are overshot by running hot. Don't account for non-climatic variables. Only 2EC warrant was feedback loops, but the Scopeta argument directly card specifically answers it and also says that history disproves that other periods have been much warmer, up to 17 degrees, but data shows a lack of extinction events. That's Thorsad. Systemic risks are wrong. Thorsad 23. Range of effects in climate lead extension to the master crop. Failure means sea level change, avoid greenhouse cause, without evidence unable to support everything risk. Estimates inflate in detail since an evidential basis varies from wrongly interpreted, not the run of skeptical crashing, inscrutable, increasingly inaccessible scientific message to super volcanoes, pandemics, the risks are low and risks are unrealistic. Negative feedback or raises heavy downside. Burgess 24. Studies incorrectly little senior residents of pollution or dramatic widely criticized. Recent studies consistent with 2 degrees Celsius air cell pollution, the cooling pipe bring wonder in a 0.5 degrees Celsius human feedback form causes lower emission positive. Feedback from tech and economics result in fast reductions and U.S. climate action. Whatever. They're not making a domestic thing. Okay, I'm good.
Okay. You said you're good, yeah?
Yeah.
What card have you read that says total collapse of trade is possible?
That total collapse of trade is possible?
Yes.
The 1NC evidence,
Which one?
Pull up right now. Well,
What's
wait.
the bar?
Yeah.
Why is it the
Well,
bar?
okay, so
Why
you've
do I know
answered
why that's
all of
the
our
bar?
cards
Like,
by
we're getting
saying,
the same impact, and
by-
so we
no.
think to the extent
You've
that you
answered
think
our
globalization
evidence.
is necessary,
Okay.
it's also necessary for the disad.
your disad is about how much shit is like going around the world. our impact is about making the trade system solve problems and protect domestic policies. So that's wrong. So my question is, you have responded to all of our thumpers by saying it is priced in, and then you have read a set of cards that say the amount of trade, like, bounces back after every individual protectionist shock. What card says that the total collapse of trade is possible?
I'm still confused over this distinction. Maybe I'm just not understanding it, but we think we've read cards that are particular to why the AF would mean that there becomes like a distinction between dirty and clean flows, which means that countries get confused, whatever, and trade collapses. There's also other warrants in the link card.
But you just said whatever and then trade collapses. Like, okay, we have
Right,
made a set of claims that's like,
they're indistinguishable from tariffs, right? They're legally awkward. There's a
right, but
there's a ton
they're
of
so
legal
like,
disputes.
okay, so like
Those are
Biden imposed
proceeded
tariffs
through
on China like pretty recently. Why did that not collapse global trade?
Well, because we think that this is legally confusing, right? That's at least clear. We also think
Like,
that
and?
well, yeah, we also think it's particular to the way that it characterizes clean versus dirty trade, whatever.
What card
It's, again,
distinguishes that for purposes of your impact?
a ton. We think the Weisbuck evidence, the Smith evidence, and the clausing evidence talks about post-IRA how layering an additional BCA is seen as locking out foreign firms is uniquely perceived as a tariff that is like really bad and that gets bureaucratic.
Okay, and then that causes what, like a trade war? Just like what
I
is
think-
the impact to any of that?
The impact.
It's like yeah, you're probably gonna win that the plan looks protectionist, and then what?
And then it causes the impact that you've enumerated in the 1AC, which is that countries no longer care about globalization or whatever. It means that other different trade flows become
no, not really.
competitive.
Okay,
Trade collapses.
actually that leads me to a different question. Have you read a uniqueness card about trade norms or support for the liberal trade order? You have read a lot of pretty good cards on the volume of shit that is going around the world is increasing or stable. Do you think you have read a card that's like legitimacy of the WTO or any of the like liberal trade norms high now?
Yes, we think that all the uniqueness cards at the top of the 2C about how deglobalization is a misnomer, etc., talks about how, how it's stable now.
Okay, so let's start with the first one. It says, strategies such as nearshoring or friendshoring, the plan, are being pursued in various economies, but those imply geographic shifts in cross-border trade, not deglobalization. Which brings me to my
Right,
initial
so-
question, because your impact is about deglobalization.
Right, so that's a reason that current decarbonization is being perceived as fine in the liberal order, but the plan would be different. I don't understand why you think that's an example of the plan.
Might be
Like, it's talking about shit like the IRA.
Okay. Well, I guess this is a little awkward, or like I should have asked before, but how do we feel about inserting rehighlightings? No? Wait.
We get to make it add.
Okay, for sure. Okay, we're not taking part.
Okay.
The 1%, I imagine everyone's good for an order.
Yeah.
Kazakhstan oil, states. States, takings, rebates, then the Brazilian agriculture yay.
Wait, Kazakhstan is first?
Yeah.
Oil states, takings, rebates, Brazil.
Yeah. Mind giving me the time? Feel good? Okay.
I'm good.
All good?
Yep.
Awesome.
Not going for Kazakhstan, concede impact defense, no offense, states and takings. Not going for either, concede the permutation test of competition theories of reason to reject the argument of the team. The rebates counterplan, not going for it. Rebates, concede rebates do not solve, and it was vague and unclear what the net benefit was. Conditionality is good. We get 3 and judge kick. Offense 1, next flex the affirmative gets the first and last speech. Dispo lets the after let the block hurts. Fairness 2, logic. The judge should be able to revert to the status quo. 3, testing and refuting the after multiple angles fosters better policy analysis. 4, ideological flex. Next, only experiment absent risk. Conditionality permits case and counterplans. Defense 1, diminished utility. Counterplans get worse for each one introduced. It can be beat with barely any 2EC time. 2, skew inevitable. 10 DAs, 20 T violations. 3, no impact. The AF can leverage 20 to generate deficits. Not a voter. 3, cross substance dispositionality does not solve. Nobody knows what it means or its functional conditionality since they said that affirmative teams can permute and now go to the DA. DA outweighs magnitude. Brazilian leadership in global governance prevents the most likely existential threats. They're the axis of global politics as a middle power and a key member of the global south. They forge co-op on global risks like emerging tech and health and prevent conflict over naturalism and protectionism from escalating. The impact is global survival. The Hawk evidence. The one at sea says that it's off. Amazon deforestation. The tipping point is now extinction. D'Souza 20. We know how critical causes for the life and industry deploy constantly. Amazon lost 24,000 miles to tipping point. Defocus slowly until half is gone. The remaining disputes very quickly. Fragmented. It was harder to continue, and it creates a model for stopping inequality that is impacted out by the one and sea takings impact card that says inequality solves extinction. Brazilian leadership best prevents global nuclear bio-war foment. 15 is increasingly complex challenges international community leaders want to coordinate with development failure to connect imperial success around nuclear biological weapons. Brazil recognizes the nexus strengthened to address root cause holistically. Brazilian predators coordinated response to support the scaling a unique opportunity to sustain legal challenges including nuclear weapons. Brazil could be an extraordinarily effective advocate. Turns both advantages. It turns trade because Brazilian leadership is important to stabilize trade tensions. It turns climate deforestation of the Amazon. Now, no EU CBAM thumper. There is an agriculture exception for Dana et al. 24 EU CBAM does not mention government proposals with even land use emissions such as agriculture. Seriously, it only covers 4 economic areas. Benson et al. 23 EU CBAM applied to sectors covered by our table 2 consist of a smaller proportion of emissions than ag. US CBAM Dex Brazil exports no EU alt cost. Jeremy Lenko 24 share of Brazilian foods covered by CBAM 30 GDP was only 0.15% in 2022. Just as long as CBAM is limited to the box market, in the country we limited the US not important destination for shipments. Threats to Brazilian exports are increased by the possibility BTA spread to the US. Now, they say global protectionism thumps. It does not apply because global protectionism does not interact with United States purchases of Brazilian exports. However, exports are high and enabling leadership. That's her. Lula is basing his strategy on achieving Brazilian soft power on food security and agriculture exports. Large economies like the United States heavily rely on Brazil to secure food needs. Terlivsky and Busari evidence Brazilian exports are growing and are not implicated by protectionism. Roberts 24 exports Brazil. If we go to the global document, it's clear there's even more. U.S. imported 22% more Brazilian food is valued internationally. The BHO taking some methodical plans to promote sector reach achievements with importers and compete with other groups. Brazil had an eightfold increase. They say the United States is not key. Yes, it is. Coach said a United States PTA would apply to agriculture would collapse. United States would collapse Brazilian soft power. This is Gauche evidence. The United States is key roaders. Brazil farmers got last year and currently harvesting Brazil very low prices. The difference about around $50 per ton. Brazilian soybean for the United States stored at 420,000 tons in 2023, 2024. Already total more than 100,000 tons. Trade disruptions cascade. Even if it's indirect. Kang 24 chemical analysis. The physical import and export reports that captures integrity, sensitivity, changes, legal affairs in interconnected areas are identified potential of failure propagation and transfer to increase has the intermediate suggesting systematic connections between the intermediaries. Once regions actions can alter another in unforeseen ways. The United States is incredibly significant. That's Statista 24 inserting a screenshot of a graph. Now, group both Richmond cards. This is probably their only way out of this debate, but neither are about Brazil, and it's broadly about developing countries. However, the plan cannot exempt LDCs. Your 1EC plan and all of your cards are talking about a uniform border carbon adjustment that applies to the entire world. Vagueness is a voting issue, and a reason the plan does not is a voting issue because it skews block strategy, especially when they work a new plan, and it is a reason the plan does not solve any of their impacts. It turns trade because it's broadly seen as unfair if it applies disproportionately, and it turns climate because nobody would comply or think that it would, or it turns climate because nobody would cooperate with the United States to reduce emissions more broadly. Tech transfer does not have an impact. It does not interact with Brazilian agriculture either. The plan uniquely devastates Brazil due to emissions intensity. Northern 24, most people-related emission increase comes from Brazil, the world's largest export and BCA makes more expensive to import to export an ag BCA has huge effect on Brazil. Goes 12 border tax adjustment based on the embodied carbon content of the exporting goods to reduce emissions, while the emissions in inputs are estimated because the carbon content in agriculture is 20 times. That is huge emissions estimated carbon content in agriculture increases BCA costs to adversely affect Brazil agriculture. Goes 12 BTA is part of the unilateral climate policies bring adverse consequences. Brazil's worst emitted agriculture is bought on the BTA since agriculture is a primary source of these emissions. They say the United States and China fills in. No, Brazil is key. Their mode of soft power is important because it uniquely connects where impact Brazilian soft power is uniquely effective and needed now due to ongoing multipolar transition to future power of Chad and 16 to future power emerging power to the and growing lower features of a unimultipolar system. Brazil has been successfully prevailing self-use but better to soft power. Brazil better to the situation for that. Insertion no hard power, particularly adapted to leveraging soft power. Favorable resolution caused by through the amount of gains. Brazil increases compliance with law and respect for treaties. They're key to solve major crises and bridge with major powers like Russia and China, but must have an equal role in governance. Mares 16. Brazil is the key to solving major crises. Global governance efforts are particularly important now. International politics in a moment. A slip in face of Chinese surge and Russia's contest. Brazil's increased capacities. Emerging powers such as Brazil are more capable in the middle, clamoring for a larger role and demanding governments to take account of their interests for sure recognition of influence. They say shifting exports elsewhere. No, you cannot shift exports elsewhere. They did not read a card about this, and we read cards that said that the United States is key to Brazilian exports, largely done above. They say that there is no reason that the plan covers food. What does this mean? mean? There is no evidence for this. Obviously, food producers still in Brazil emit a ton of carbon emissions, and if the plan does not apply to food, then it applies to nothing, so you should vote negative on consumption. Brazilian leadership prevents a laundry list of existential impacts. Kisevo 10. Brazil will leave in a multilateral based order since Brazil will be climate trade. Participation gave the products legitimacy evidence in financial crisis. We tell much broader dimension. Brazil has been a federal player in negotiations concerning climate related engagement for elimination of nukes. Do you want to read a card on anything, Brian? I've got 10 seconds left. Conventional war escalates. We return to dismal forms of conventional force, convincing some. Russia can be deterred, yet by nature's conventional superiority, deterrence of nuclear is no longer a priority. This is dangerous. Putin's decision to invade Ukraine demonstrated a propensity to take risk.
That was in the Geopolitical. Just marked it risk. Song advantage 2.
What's it? 726.
Wait. Was that? Sorry, did you just say that you?
It was in the 2 and 6.
Oh, great. Okay.
Okay, 726. 310. You didn't tea.
I didn't what?
You didn't tea.
Topicality?
You said you were looking at tea. Why'd you make all that stink about tea?
Some things remain a mystery, Holland, you know? Some things are best left.
Whatever.
Okay, it was sent. Okay, the order is the climate advantage, trade, the Brazil decide, and then rebates.
Could you say it one more time, please?
Yeah, climate advantage, trade, Brazil decide, rebates.
Good.
Good.
Okay, I am good.
Okay, cool. Yes, BC is so leakage. One is that the U.S. is domestically decarbonizing. Now, two countries will adapt because they want more U.S. market access. No circumvention. They didn't have a warrant for this, but yes, we did answer it. The BC is miserable and PSOs. Any sort of any lack of enforcement, competitive defense is wrong. This is a pre-IRA. Doesn't assume the U.S. manufacturing industry being weak because they're forced being decarbonized. The warming does cause extinction. We're not going for a hot house, but it does cause food insecurity, war, migration, refugee, and societal collapse, social convergence of systemic risks. Yes, there are systemic risks. The evidence they read is from Professor of Philosophy. Trait. Drops impact of deglobalization. Solving deglobalization is key to resolve inequality, pandemics, climate change because it's key to cooperation. Two is to drop supply chains. Impact causes escalation because China invades Taiwan because they have control over semiconductors. At the top, they only answer the EUC ban thumper on the Brazil decide, but the only answer is that it exempts agriculture. It thumps the trade decide because it means that all countries must comply with the BCA now. But protectionism is not unique. It's a status quo. Citizens are pressuring their governments to turn inwards because free trade trades off with domestic investment. That's a work. Evidence is trade crisis is different. Hellner 24 predictions demise globalization long out full history given the record of its tempting to claims such would be basing holy crisis interacting crisis highly serious sense of crisis facing deglobalization prominent analysts critical past comes globalization reversal such as both expected about and globalization interpreters aptly describe the moment the pandemic effects will be long lasting. Hellner 24 pandemic generates severe global shock in 2008 trade versus severely stopped countries that post export restriction pandemic revealed vulnerabilities of global markets many with government so it enters in self-reliance for force criticism of globalization but pulse previous enthusiastic globalization getting new tunes such as Moody's sentiments endured as health crisis waned Ukraine caused a wave of autarky. Hellner 24 invasion of Ukraine Western sanctions and unraveling economic test results from disrupting some classical actions illustrating vulnerability about weaponization of independence of the war ends concerns endure or don't string it you can for less and low is reinforcing Japan independence that the was drawn in the sanctions provided catalyst for Japan, Italy, and Germany to turn towards autarkic and trade data is irrelevant. Trade volume might be up. A contrast says deglobalization is occurring structurally in parallel to record high trade because supply chains are increasing but becoming more concentrated. Countries are pulling out of the global economy. That's the uncontroversial evidence. If they are right that COVID, Ukraine, and a Chinese trade war did not wreck trade and that only proves that it's resilient. They must win that the BCA is more significant than this, which their link evidence does not rise to the threshold evidence. Their empirics evidence cites a U.S.-China trade war that was huge, and the fact that it is always exaggerated proves that dissat is an example of the exaggeration. The link turn outweighs it is the only thing that saves the global trade system because it's collapsing now because it is not mission-oriented, which proves that the link does not outweigh on magnitude. Also dropped a Biden tariff thumper. Biden is enforcing massive tariffs against China now, which is what their evidence is about. There's no link to no legal disputes. Linked disputes at the WTO will take years. Will only treat BCA around the edges. Trade benefits are too important for growing economies. Disputes reduce China's GDP by more than $150 billion per year. Countries are more likely to comply eventually. That's work evidence. No shock. This evidence just says that countries fear the BCA, not that they will collapse the global trade system because of it. They say it gets captured because of calculations that is wrong or normally means evidence proves that the FPFA sets an appropriate rate and the IRS calculates according to emissions intensity with the difference between domestic and foreign sectors. No IRA does not make it more discriminatory because that only proves it's not equal subsidies were protections, but true it proves that the U.S. was not discriminatory because it's externalizing the decarbonization that U.S. companies are doing already. Protectionism doesn't decrease climate change. Our evidence is the U.S. is already decarbonizing, so tariffs are key. It doesn't turn competitiveness because domestic manufacturing strength is key and spurred by global decarbonization. No, yes, China does have a motive. Our evidence cites empirics of nations using supply chain shortages to start a war. And two, they have a unique control over semiconductors, which incentivizes escalation. In Taiwan, collapse is not inevitable, or concede collapse is inevitable via between the U.S. and the EU, which proves that we don't solve the Russia, that the Russia nuke stuff is inevitable. And it's not offense, Brazil. Also, their manning evidence concedes existing trade disputes and or escalate and protectionism is not unique. Manning 24. Tripling trade barriers since 2019, even on nationalism, protectionism Around the world, searching factual failings, compatibility, erosion, rule, to order, control, validate, trading partners, increase fragmentation. The Brazil does.
See, their thing can't turn our impact because ours is about norms, theirs is about volume.
Sure. Their impact cannot turn ours because ours is about norms and theirs is about volume and only we've read an impact to it. Brazil. At the top, all the different impacts are presumed by them winning the link and internal link, which means if we win link defense and it proves that it is not unique, they cannot turn trade. They don't have any evidence that Brazil is key to navigating deglobalization, but the US and EU account for 40% of trade and has set the trade rules. They don't turn the EU CBAM exempting ag proves that it is normal means for the plan because BCA's exempt emissions intense sectors. Trade does not, they read a part about trade cascading, could see that that's our argument about global protectionism on the other page, but no link. The plan exempts agriculture sectors and or exempts least developing countries because they are vulnerable. It's not vagueness because they normal means should specify how the plan occurs. Which means it's not saying that the plan fiats an exemption, but that is how the LDC would be implemented, which is that Twincy Fisher evidence. It does not. It's not unfair because the LDCs are uniquely vulnerable. It doesn't turn climate because this still applies to all the other countries. And the other countries don't have to agree to the plan for it to apply. Now,
also read that card there.
yeah, it to apply. It isn't emissions. The ag sector isn't emissions intensive. Gosh, 12 to analyze carbon policy models to aggregate sectors based on emissions and trade orientation. This includes fossil fuel sectors, i.e. iron and steel, and 6 other sectors. Agriculture, they see soft power is key. This evidence says that Brazil is an effective foreign policy leader, which just proves that the decrease in ag exports isn't key. They say Brazil solves Russia. This evidence says that military and political leadership is key. Proves that proves that ag exports aren't key. They say, and also there's no shift, or the Brazil could just shift exports elsewhere, which answers all their U.S. keywords. Because if the U.S. is huge, it just means that they'll shift more to China, India, etc. Exporters will just redirect trade elsewhere. It also has sensitivity increase the border tax rates increase China, India. But low-income countries are hardly affected. Low-income countries gain. Low-income countries increase gain trade between non-coalition increases. Low-income countries increase trade. They say Brazil uses nukes. This evidence says that multilateral leadership solves proves ag exports aren't key. Rebates. Kondo is a voter. Okay, Kondo is a voter when it's 2C, choice of 2C. Never reads their best Counterplan answers because they can be kicked and linked to the app or create contradiction. Other pages 2 is clash. Neg has no incentive to research Counterplans in depth. 4, 3, fairness makes it impossible to answer strategies like pace with 10 extra points and unique Counterplans that straight turn, which deny choice 4, dismissal, choice you can kick points that we confirm that proves it's not. Functionally, Kondo, no neg, flex, 1 sees the counter, econ digate are all roided, and 3 Kondo turns are offensive. Don't get to learn strategies if we're good. They don't get to learn if their strategies were good. No logic. 1, it justifies intrinsic terms, which is bad. 2, logic is arbitrary. Drop arguments were true is illogical, but it makes sense in the competitive context. No testing. 1, Kondo turns testing. It doesn't solve testing. Prolific, eliminate, throwaway Counterplans because there's no cost. 2, returns. Force them anyways. There's no ideological flex was answered with neg flex. No diminishing utilities or evidence about strat Q is not inevitable because Counterplans are uniquely bad. They don't allow straight turns. 1AC doesn't solve because it doesn't solve strat Q.
9:45 starting.
Kamala Harris has had so many people text me over like the last week. I know. It's like, girl, you got me already. Focus on the other one. You're right.
Card is being sent.
She thinks you're a low information voter.
I am a painfully high information voter. I wish I was a low information voter.
I would give everything to be a low
Right.
information voter.
Right.
I just need like a lobotomy.
Big time. Big time, big time. I didn't get the card, but I'm good for an
Just
order
send it.
whenever.
Just send it right now.
What's the order?
It is the Brazil disad, the trade advantage, the climate advantage, and then condo.
Brazil, trade, climate, condo.
Mhm.
Got it.
Login. The disad outweighs versus magnitude. Brazilian leadership and global governance prevents the most likely existential threats. They are the axis of global politics. As a middle power and a key member of the global south, they forge cooperation on global risks like emerging tech and health and prevent conflict over nationalism, protectionism from escalating. The impact is global survival. That's how. Second is it turns the warning advantage because they conceded that Brazil deforests their economy. And third, it turns trade cooperation. That EU trade is 40% of global trade is an FYI, not an argument. Brazilian soft power is way more likely to facilitate trade and supply chain resilience than a border carbon adjustment that basically takes a blunt weapon to the global trade system. The normal means trick is cheating. One, it's new. The 2EC did not actually say this. I read the card they read in prep, and it actually says that an exemption fails and causes case impacts. I'm going to read it now. This is what it says. We're in yellow. LDC should be exempted. Gives rise to leakage concerns for prevents circumventing the fee by shifting production to LDCs or by using LDCs as a pass-through. Those are lines of a card that they read in the 2EC, and the 1 ER does not get to reinvent this debate. Is a reason to vote on presumption because the plan causes leakage. This 1 ER gosh card is interesting and not an argument. There's no card they've read that establishes that border tax adjustments exclude sectors that are not emissions intensive. Carve-outs are in the case. It means you cannot solve the climate broadly, and it also means that you cannot facilitate trade because of them. Second, this is totally unfair. The 1 ER explicitly said vagueness is a voting issue because it shifts the point of clash and makes it impossible to be negative. The only one ER response was we weren't vague, but you absolutely were. Reject this pivot both because it wasn't in the 2EC, but also because it's theoretically illegitimate. The global protectionism thing, I'm not sure what the 1 ER said here, but the soft power warrant is new in the 1 ER, so you should scratch it. The 2EC did not say impact a defense, and the 2 ER doesn't get it. Okay, your computer just died. They say Brazil shifts.
Right here.
What?
Right.
The screen is black,
I
bro.
don't care here.
Okay, they say Brazil shifts exports elsewhere. One, the U.S. is key. We buy so much of their agriculture, it's very key. Gosh, we buy hundreds of thousands of tons from the United States. That's routers and again, like your computer's fucked, so it's fine. The bar is low. They conceded King 24 that says trade disruptions cascade, even if it's indirect. And third, think about how much time it takes to redirect exports. The last 1 AR card is not about Brazil, so it absolutely doesn't. It doesn't apply. Yeah, that's a lot of offense that just outweighs like zero risk of case trade. Trade is resilient. Every single 1 AR card takes out solvency. They're all about exogenous factors like COVID, Ukraine, broad trends, rise of populism, etc. The plan has nothing to do with those things. They all prove that trade is resilient. I'm not going to go for offense because not a single card in the 1AC says that the CBAM solves any of the slew of uniqueness evidence that the 1 AR read, but I'll extend the administrative complexity link as defense and ensures determination is politicized as protectionism, which means that any risk that the plan is politicized is enough to mean that it fucks with the signal of the plan or it inevitably collapses because the 1 AR confusingly conceded that the EU-US relations collapse, which means we obviously can't trade with them, so US-EU trade is not something that can outweigh the disad, but collapse of the alliance is inevitable. EU and US are categorically misaligned on trade. The US is protectionist, there are tariff disputes, and they aren't compliant with the WTO. That's fixed to Carlo from the 2NC. The supply chain stuff, there is no internal link to this advantage. Not a single piece of evidence establishes why trying to disrupt supply chains. This was conceded by both the 2EC and the 1 AR, so I'm not going to do a lot here, but also COVID proves resiliency. The CHIPS, the IRA, and the Infrastructure and Jobs Act obviously solve disruptions. Climate. A CBAM does not solve it. At most reduces leakage from 11 to 7%, and exporters switch to clean production for U.S. exports and dirty for their own consumption, and exports are a tiny portion of other countries' emissions profiles. The 1 AR, again, just conceded every everything the 2NC said here, except said that countries adapt. I just don't know why that's a reason that a CBAM uniquely solves. Either way, climate at least takes forever. The 2EC did not impact out any of the other things like climate, like food insecurity, pandemics, etc., which means they all beg the question of how long it takes for climate change to escalate, and you can be positive that this happens in the interim. One trends indicate that survivable rather than extreme warning is likely, and they dropped adaptation, that current ecological and tech trends are definitely sufficient, and that their models are definitely overshot because they all run hot and do not account for non-climatic variables. We read other authors besides whoever they think is a philosophy professor, so that overdetermines it, and they dropped that periods have been warmer in the past, which disproves feedback loops because it proves that we're resilient and adaptation kicks in the long term. Condo. It's good we get what we did, and judge kick versus negative flexibility. Dispo exacerbates the neg's inherent disadvantages, lets the abstract turn dis as a net benefits counterpoint, which lets them choose the block if the neg slips up by putting generics like politics or clogging the 1NC, and the 2EC straight turns if the AFF has to go for it without a counterplan to remedy the mistake. Neg fairness outweighs because the debate is biased towards the AFF on every topic. They get first and last speech, and they got to choose to focus on the debate. This topic is deceptively large too. It's not just on T. We conceded that they get subsets, and even AFFs outside the U.S., which makes it topic substantially wide for the AFF testing. Condo permits the neg to refute the AFF from multiple angles. Attack that fosters better policy analysis. We should get an advantage. Counterplan that testing intrinsicness of AFF advantages to the plan, and if we only get one or the other, debaters miskeep laws and policy proposals. Condo absolutely does not turn testing, and this didn't have a warrant in the 1AR, so it doesn't matter. But Condo permits us to introduce worlds risk-free, the only way to jumpstart neg experimentation. Otherwise, teams are scared to bring in case or counterplans they're unfamiliar with, which is bad. And there's no contradictions in this debate, and there's no examples in the 1AR. We need to be able to make contradictions to tie down big new plans to solvency. I know this one isn't in the 1NR, but the new plan at least justifies some degree of negative flexibility and kicking planks. There was not any unique offense that they generate off of whether or not the negative can kick planks. And again, there's no examples, and they have not made this about anyone's model, but they dropped the dispo doesn't solve because no one knows what it means, and it's functionally conditionality since the AFF must permit also does not solve any of their offense. None of that was in the 1AR, and diminishing utility absolutely solves offense. Speech times can train the number of counterplans the neg team can introduce, and Q is inevitable. Another offense is intrinsic to Condo. Teams get away with reading 10 is at 20. T violations the 1NC was also pressures the 2EC, and there's no impact to it because if the AFF is written well, it can generate deficits to every counterplan by leveraging the 1AC. 2AC pressure is never insurmountable.
Okay, 310. Thank you. I'm gonna wait. Decarbonization advantage. Trade advantage. Brazil does add.
Sorry, you said that really fast, like you were about to start your speech,
Yeah,
and I was
thought
like,
so
what is
too.
happening?
I am in such a state right now. Okay. Yeah. Okay. Decarbonization, trade, Brazil. Good. 2-0 dropped the competitiveness scenario after the 2-2 also dropped it. Concede their warming defense and is relevant. We are not going for that impact. CBM does not need to solve global decarbonization, which is the first card in the 2-0. The plan protects domestic decarbonization against leakage. Domestic common policy like EPA rules in the IRA will inevitably impose costs on firms and they will leak abroad, which collapses competitiveness of U.S. domestic manufacturing. That underwrites military power because in a sort of military crisis, industry is what is called on to respond, and that will become cost competitive if it leaks globally. That ensures a quick deterrence collapse. The one is the impact evidence, which is I think the third card on the advantage says that causes the escalation of existing hotspots like the SES, Ukraine, and the Israel-Gaza war. It outweighs their slop about Brazil soft power because it is at least a specific scenario, and you know that it is going to escalate in the short term, and you are not unsure what the impact of their web of stupid is. Now, trade advantage. It solves or sort of mitigates their ability to cover this. Brazil soft power impact. Yes, volume of trade is inevitably high, which is our argument about this back after declines, which is the issue after with all of the 2-2 evidence. However, support for free trade norms and the liberal system is collapsing, creating a mission-oriented system of trade that protects domestic policies like the IRA against sort of competitiveness, decline, and leakage abroad, creates a workable model of trade the countries embrace, which facilitates cooperation across all existential risks like pandemics, disease, and poverty. That is the evidence, and the one you see the sudden evidence immediately before it says that the plan is a shot in the arm for that sort of model of trade that restores confidence in the liberal system of trade, and that sort of forcing companies to internalize the cost of their emissions. It's important to do that and demonstrate that trade can do things like protect domestic climate policy, etc. That means that we access their internal link to the sort of web of stupid. Brazil solves all problems, and competitiveness is external. Administrative, the sort of trade resilience of above administrative complexity is wrong. The plan is easily administrable, which is extended in the 1AR. It is easily calculable because it's based on the difference of average emissions and in the United States sectors versus foreign firms. There's no impact to illics politicizing the 2-R, or at least not an articulated one is on an objective basis based on the difference of sectoral emissions, which means that it does not sort of cause backlash, and it is answered by all of the cards that say that the plan is a shot in the arm for a new model of trade. The 1AR US-EU relationship collapse is inevitable, is irrelevant because the plan sort of more broadly galvanizes support for a liberal new model of trade that is not just hyper-globalization and not just the total free liberal trade that is one you see sudden in the Counterplan evidence and the other work evidence that starts the advantage. Our evidence is about a global model, so the EU defense doesn't apply. The supply chains defense conceded, not are relevant, not going for it. Brazil. Here is where all of the protectionism arguments do matter. The 1NR read a card. Wait, what does this say? The 1AR or the 1NR with this can card, and the 2NR chose to re-extend it, which says that the sort of inevitably the small sort of disruptions and trade cascade, even if indirectly it is tagged as such. The 1AR conceded it at the top. The 1AR said we will concede their card about cascades in trade. The 2NR extends this argument again. All of our arguments about COVID, Ukraine, etc., and sort of Biden's climate tariffs, etc., and the sort of long-term collapse in the sort of models of trade or the long-term inevitability of protectionism means that will inevitably cascade to Brazilian agricultural exports. There's no reading of this card that says that that would sort of be insulated from Brazilian agricultural exports, which means that our arguments about a liberal model of trade are the only way to save Brazilian ag exports in the long term, and there is no uniqueness further to that because they've conceded all of our trade impact defense arguments, and they do not have an internal link to any of their stuff. Now the overview proper loses to no internal link. Their evidence says Brazil has important foreign policy and middle power capacities. You could be a middle power who mediates between two great powers, even if you are a little bit poorer or not exporting as much food. This argument was clearly flagged in clearly flagged in the 1AR between After Noah read that ghost card, she said, soft power evidence says that they do foreign policy, which proves a decrease in exports is not key. There was no sort of articulation in the 2NR about why Brazilian agricultural exports key to their leadership, or their sort of Brazil solves problems impact, which means that is totally ludicrous. Now, the quotes from their cards trying to make this pretty explicit. The Foreman 15 card on nuclear and bioterror war says, the country has repeatedly recognized the nexus of crime and violence at home and abroad. A Brazilian foreign policy coordinated responses across this divide is enviable. The chat and evidence says that Brazil has benefited from a unique geostrategic situation because they've been, quote, rarely involved in our conflict and have, quote, respect for international treaties, which means that there is no sort of internal link in their stuff. The turns warming stuff is irrelevant because we can see the no terminal impact, and it is not trade competitiveness. Trade turns cooperation. US-EU trade is 40%. Is not an FYI. It is an we are not going for an argument about the sort of volume of trade, but there's no articulation in the 2NR about what Brazil does about the collapse of global trade, so it certainly cannot turn that impact. Now, the plan, the cascading effects on trade thing, I already said. The 1NR King says even if it is indirect, Brazilian agriculture will be affected in the short and the long run, which is either of them or a reason that the affirmative solves by restoring the sort of global model of trade, or their arguments about trade being resilient and always bouncing back on the case and conceding all of that means that Brazilian agriculture is sort of resilient, which means that only we have a unique impact in this debate. Now, the plan exempts agriculture. It is a yes, no question that means if we win it, there is no risk of NEG. One, Fishman uses the words in the plan, the emission base per border carbon adjustment says that would apply differentially to different goods, not be a universal tariff across the economy. In particular, it applies to emissions-intensive trade exposed sectors. This makes the most sense because the goal is to protect domestic industry. If domestic ag is not trade exposed, you do not need to protect it. Similarly, if a sector is not emissions intensive, we do not need a carbon tariff because that would not have a large effect. Two, their card stock goes. It's like, hey, it would suck if this applied to agriculture. The one in our said Brazil ag causes a ton of emissions. We cut that article in the 1AR. That was the basis of their link argument of agriculture is not emissions intensive. It is explicitly disaggregated from emissions intensive sectors in the taxonomy. In their cards, 3 EU CBAM. That is how you know agriculture is not emissions intensive or trade exposed. Their evidence says the EU CBAM applies to things like steel and aluminum because those are emissions intensive and trade exposed. Fishman is writing post to CBAM. It says we should apply a similar framework for. And finally, we get to clarify the plan. All means explains insolvency evidence. The plan uses the language of our evidence, which demonstrates this is not a post hoc clarification. If they wanted to know more about the plan, they should have asked in cross-text. Concede, reject the argument, not the team on conditionality, which answers their arguments about plan vagueness. And it is not that we sort of get to say what the plan is post hoc, but whether you should read our solvency evidence to determine it. The solvency evidence is the Fishman card that says the sort of emissions density thing. Finally, supply shift. There will always be demand for food. Brazil will not just grow food and let it rot. They will shift elsewhere to circumvent the tax that is white. It cites middle and low income countries since they increase trade in response to the plan and are hardly effective. Therefore, I say the U.S. is a key client, not that it will be indefinitely or the only place in the U.S. is the only place in the world that needs food because that is totally incoherent. Good debate.